Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall, and it was another big upset week in this season of upsets in the NFL, and one of the biggest upsets last week had to be the Houston Oilers' 20-3 victory over Cincinnati. That was the Oilers' 5th upset victory of the season, and their 2nd over Paul Brown's Bengals, Tom.
Well, there's a little bad blood now between Sid Gilman and Paul Brown, I understand, 2 elderly coaches, right? Sid
says he's senile.
How about that, though? That's, what, 4 straight wins now for Houston, and they have a 5-5 record, huh?
That's the same record they've got. They've got the same record, rather, as Dallas, and Dallas had won 4 straight before their loss to Washington last week, and they play each other this week. What do you think?
Well, that's the Texas title. I don't think either team can afford to lose down there.
They really can't.
How about the defense, though? That Houston team's playing good defense, too.
They must be. They intercepted 6 passes week before last against Buffalo, so they're going to be tough for Dallas and for anybody.
They better be.
We'll be right back with This Week in the NFL after this message.
When the Buffalo Bills traveled to sunny Miami last week, they were tied for the lead in the AFC East with the world champion Dolphins, but they were up against 2 very formidable streaks. First, the Bills had not beaten the Dolphins in their last 9 tries, and second, Miami had won an incredible 28 straight games home in the Orange Bowl.
In the early going, the punting game was predominant, as neither Miami nor Buffalo could score a point during the first 9 series of the game. But then things started to happen. First, a Bob Greasy pass intended for Paul Warfield was intercepted in the end zone by Tony Green, number 43. Tony Green ran 107 yards to the Miami end zone, but a defensive holding penalty nullified the play. And instead of Buffalo being ahead by 7, on the next play, Larry Zonka put Miami ahead by 7. With just 36 seconds left in the first half, Bob Greasy found Paul Warfield on a classic deep post pattern, and Miami led comfortably 14-0 at the half. For the day, Warfield caught just 4 passes, but those 4 passes were worth a very important 139 yards for the Dolphins. In the second half, the Bills' conference-leading defense decided to put more heat on quarterback Bob Greasy. Greasy found a way to turn the heat off, as play action on 3rd and 1 led to another long gainer to Paul Warfield. Warfield's 54-yarder set up another easy touchdown by Larry Zonka, and a 21-7 Miami lead after 3 quarters. But in the 4th quarter, strange things began to happen. Dave Washington's fumble return brought the Bills within a touchdown at 21-14. But Buffalo quarterback Joe Ferguson had to leave the game with knee contusions. Buffalo's future appeared shaky as the quarterbacking was turned over to a fellow named Gary Morangi, a rookie from Boston College who had never before thrown a pass in an official NFL game. J.D. Hill's spectacular catch turned Gary Morangi's first pro pass into a touchdown, and the score was tied at 21. But only until the next series, when an 81-yard Miami drive ended with Don Nottingham's easy romp into the end zone. Then, trailing 28-21, with time running out, it was again all up to number 17, Gary Morangi. On the drive, Morangi ran 3 times and completed 5 of 6 passes, including a touchdown to Bob Chandler. And suddenly, with less than a minute left to play, the game was again tied, this time at 28. With just 51 seconds left, Bob Greasy, from his own 19, looked for Paul Warfield on the deep out. Warfield's clutch catch had the Dolphins at midfield. A pass to Jim Kick gained another 12, and then Kick bounced outside for 15 more. With just 24 seconds left, the most important series of the season for both teams was about to culminate in one of the most amazing plays of the season. The offensive call, a draw play to Don Nottingham. The defensive call, safety blitz. It hasn't been a perfect season for Miami, but a perfect comeback and a perfect play gave the Dolphins undisputed first place for the first time this year. And who could blame the usually unflappable Dolphins for showing a little emotion for a change?
Unlike the Dolphins and the Bills, Pat, two AFC teams that maybe don't have to worry about the playoffs are the Jets and the Patriots.
That's right, Tom. The Jets just about ended the Patriots' hopes last Sunday with their surprising victory in New England.
If there was any doubt that the Patriots' bubble had finally burst, ask the 61,000 in Schaefer Stadium, who saw Jim Plunkett float 4 balloons of his own into the eager arms of Jet defenders. Plunkett was intercepted 4 times, which makes his total 13 in the last 4 games. On the other hand, Joe Namath is approaching top form. Against New England, Joe threw 2 touchdown passes, the first to surprising rookie Bob Burns, and the second off a pump fake to sure-handed David Knight. In this game, Namath and the improved Jets were avenging an earlier 24-0 shutout by these same Patriots. Or are they the same? New England didn't wake from their slumber until the second half, when Andy Johnson took the kickoff and with good downfield blocking went 95 yards for an apparent touchdown. Unfortunately for the fading Patriots, the score was called back due to a clipping penalty. There was a bright spot for New England, but it too was soon tarnished. Sam Cunningham ran brilliantly for 113 yards. On this play, escorted by number 16, who blocked better than he passed today. Sam Cunningham later broke a leg and will be out for the rest of the Patriots season. With 1:45 left, New England still had a chance to win, but Plunkett served up interception number 4 to Roscoe Word, and the Jets were winners. For an idea just how badly things are going for New England, in their first 9 games, the Jets secondary picked off merely 3 passes. They exceeded that total against Jimmy Plunkett. For New England, it was a 3rd straight loss, and their once bright playoff hopes are all but ended. For the Jets, things are looking up. It was the first time in 2 years they've won 2 games in a row.
The Baltimore Colts and the Atlanta Falcons have had 2 problems in common this season. First, both teams have suffered through coaching changes during the year, which might have had something to do with both teams' most serious and second common problem, that of losing.
If you were looking for one word which would best describe the Atlanta Falcons' season thus far, it would be frustration. That would do quite nicely. Last Sunday, though, the Falcon defense seemed at times to come alive, zeroing their displeasure toward the Baltimore Colts. Falcon safety Ray Brown, number 34, was a Baltimore irritation all afternoon, once aborting a Colt score with a neat end-zone theft. But the Falcon offense just couldn't keep pace with its defense, as their only 6-point explosion came on a nice cutback sweep by rookie Haskell Standback, number 24. For the rest of the afternoon, temporary success by the Atlanta offense ended beneath a host of white-clad hitmen. Even the Falcons' best efforts worked against them. Take, for example, this Bob Lee to Jim Mitchell hookup. Colt linebacker Tom McLeod, number 52, returned this Atlanta miscue for good field position, giving number 26 Lydell Mitchell a chance to grind out 17 yards of the 151 yards he would scramble for in the afternoon. A second dimension in the Baltimore ground attack were the bursts of number 38 Bill Oles. Oles scored on one short blast, while the running of quarterback Marty Domrys produced the other Baltimore touchdown. In front 17-7, and late in the game, the Colt defense clamped defeat around the neck of the stifled Falcons. A name from amid a glorious Baltimore pass arose as number 32 Mike Curtis intercepted to finish the bewildered Atlanta Falcons with a 17-7 Baltimore victory.
Early in the season, it appeared as if the Chicago Bears might finally be making some headway on that long road back, Tom.
Pat, it did look like that, but since then, the victory formula has somehow escaped the once heralded monsters of the Midway. Last week against the San Francisco 49ers, the Bears were trying to avert their fourth loss in a row.
The Bears have always been noted for an aggressive, hard-hitting defense, but last Sunday, 49er quarterback Tom Owen found out another thing that, for at least on this Sunday, the Bears were good at. Three times, 49er drives would bite the dust as three Chicago interceptions temporarily held off the inevitable 49er onslaught. After 4 consecutive games without a single point, the Chicago offense could come only as close as a botched referee signal following a 49er interception. Number 49, Ralph McGill, ended a Chicago threat as the 49er defense just out-hustled and out-hit the befuddled Chicago Bears. The recovery by number 64, Dave Wilcox, put the 49ers in Bear territory, where rookie quarterback Tom Owen, number 14, took over, striking tight end Ted Kwolek deep behind the Chicago secondary. Kwolek's catch set up a short score by Owen, but it was to be only one of 3 big grabs, which the former Penn State star would produce on the afternoon. The third time Owen went to Kwolek, number 82 split the Chicago zone for an easy-as-pie 20-yard scoring completion. Owen's longest volley of the day came when he slightly underthrew number 88, Terry Beasley, allowing the 5'10" second-year wide receiver to do the rest. Beasley's 68-yard touchdown highlighted a 34-0 rout of a Chicago Bear team whose offensive unit has failed to register a single touchdown in its last 4 outings.
In New Orleans last week, the Saints won without even breathing hard over a Ram team that has somewhat faltered in recent weeks. In another division, the Rams might be hard-pressed to collect a championship, but the race in the NFC West has just about become a shambles.
From the first snap, the Saints stuck it to Los Angeles receivers. These hard licks affected the Rams when James Harris' pass to a wide-open Jack Snow took the receiver across the end line. From there, every Rams scoring chance was cruelly canceled by their own mistakes. The Saints built a solid 13-0 lead on 2 field goals and an Archie Manning home run to Bob Newland, number 41. Newland's 79-yard catch-and-run touchdown took the wind out of the West Coast Supermen as the St. tidal wave crested and broke into victory. Rookie tight end Paul Seal turned a simple square out into a swiveled hip special. New Orleans' final touchdown resulted from a Manning bullet to another prime rookie, Joel Parker, number 88. Facing a 20-0 shutout blitz, the Rams rose out of their groggy sleep, and Harris began to sort out wide-open receivers like Lance Rensel. But the only touchdown the Rams could muster came the hard way when tight end Bob Klein bolted his way through the Saints secondary as New Orleans washed out the Rams 20-7.
It's getting easier and easier to tell the winners from the losers, Pat, in that AFC West, huh?
That's right, Tom. The winners are the ones who arrive in style.
In Oakland, getting there is half the fun. The offensive line arrives by a Rolls Royce, the defensive line in chauffeur-driven caddy. These poised and proud people live in a style befitting their position as perennial champions of the AFC West. But for Art Tom, Manny Sistrunk, and the rest of the Raiders, 1974 has been easier than usual with 8 straight wins and non-existent competition from the rest of the division. Last Sunday, at least the San Diego Chargers were not that impressed. The improving Charger defense stifled Oakland the entire first half, except for a single play, as Snake Stabler and Cliff Branch took advantage of a momentary letdown. A repeat of that play shows the Chargers in perfect double coverage, but the recipients of some bad fortune. One defender simply falls down, another is screened off by an official. Cliff Branch saluted 60 yards and a 7-0 Oakland lead, and then the defense took over. Madden's mercenaries gave ground in tiny chunks as rookie sensation Donnie Woods, number 33, carried 27 times for 117 painful yards. When the Chargers did creep close enough for a score, Dame Fortune again gave them the back of her hand. Fate seemed to be wearing silver and black, and when Pete Banaszak breezed over to make the score 17-3 late in the third quarter, the division title seemed secure for yet another year. But with time fading, a ghost from the past reappeared. Back in the old days, when San Diego used to be competitive with the Raiders, number 27 Gary Garrison tested their pride and poise quite regularly. Now Garrison was up to his old tricks, a 57-yard catch and carry to bring San Diego back into the scrap 17-10. But with less than 3 minutes left in the game, Stabler had only to run out the clock. Incredibly, the Snake put it up for grabs instead. Linebacker Floyd Rice, number 57, did the honors as Stabler was intercepted for the first time in 142 attempts. Then number 14, Dan Fouts, went right back to a sure thing. Garrison put San Diego at the 8 with 1:56 remaining. 4 plays later, they were still at the 8 with one last chance. Fouts' last pass was dead-ended by Dr. Death himself. Skip Thomas celebrated a 17-10 Oakland victory and the clinching of a third consecutive AFC Western Division championship. Now, if Dr. Death can only keep them psyched up until the playoffs start, that's in December, they could well be wheeling that old Rolls-Royce south to New Orleans come January. After losing the Battle of New York to the Jets in overtime, Pat, the New York Giants were on the road last week to test their comeback fiber, and also that of the Detroit Lions.
You know, Tom, the story of the Lions' season so far has been their ability to rebound from sure defeat. Last Sunday against the Giants, this ability was again put to the test.
Detroit head coach Rick Berzano has brought his Lions a long way this season, and early last Sunday, the Giants saw just how far the Motor City men have come. Detroit blocked New York's first punt, giving number 19 Bill Munson good position for the game's first score. Though this Munson TD was voided by a penalty, number 19 got it back 2 plays later on a sneak. By the second quarter, Munson was having good success to his screening backs. Altie Taylor's effort was a part of a drive which eventually landed the Lions on the Giant 13-yard line. But further Lion progress eroded on Ron Jesse's fumble. And by the third quarter, the Giants were turning into big game hunters, trailing only by a 10-6 margin. Brad Van Pelt's interception set Giant quarterback Craig Morton in the good position, and number 15 clicked for 6. Bob Grimm's scoring catch, coupled with a field goal, put the Giants on the favorable side of a 16-10 advantage. And by the fourth quarter, Craig Morton was looking for more. Walker Gillette's 44-yard reception helped set up field goal number 4 by Pete Golgolak, as the New York advantage stretched to a 19-10 margin. But working against the clock, Detroit moved on the determination of number 19, Billy Munson. Bob Picard's touchdown still left the Lions short by 2. But with 7 seconds remaining at the Giant 20-yard line, Errol Mann put his foot into the New York victory plans. Mann's 37-yarder awarded Detroit a well-deserved come-from-behind win over the New York Giants 20-19.
Detroit is still hanging in there in the NFC Central, Tom, and now suddenly there's another team in the NFC Central that seems to be coming on strong.
That'd have to be Dan Devine's Green Bay Packers, Pat. They're a much different-looking team than they were when the Minnesota Vikings rolled over them in the season's opening game.
Last Sunday, Fran Tarkenton became only the second player ever to pass for 35,000 yards in a pro career. But wait, Green Bay had a quarterback who became only the 5th player ever to pass for 30,000 yards. In only his 3rd game as a Packer, John Hadel's short passing game was largely responsible for running up an early advantage over the division-leading Minnesota Vikings. Hadel's most effective weapon was John Brockington, who had his best day of the year with 137 yards rushing and over 200 yards in total offense. While Minnesota wouldn't allow Green Bay to cross its goal line for most of the game, John Hadel got the Packers close enough for 4 Chester Marchold field goals and a 12-0 lead. The Packers' 12-0 lead would have been even greater, except that a fumble from the 2-yard line into the Minnesota end zone resulted in a harmless touchback instead of a touchdown Green Bay. The Green Bay defense kept the NFC's second-ranked offense in check for most of the game. or at least until the fourth quarter, when Fran Tarkenton pulled the Vikings to within striking distance at 12-7 with a pass to Chuck Foreman, who added to his league-leading scoring total with his 13th touchdown of the season. With 3.5 minutes left, John Hadel put the game out of reach when he beat a Minnesota blitz with a short pass over the middle to number 36, MacArthur Lane. "68 yards later, MacArthur Lane finally met his match. While the Minnesota defense could not stop MacArthur Lane, unfortunately for Lane, a rolled-up tarpaulin and a cyclone fence did stop him, at least temporarily. The last flicker of hope for the Vikings was extinguished when a Fran Tarkenton pass to the end zone was intercepted by safety man Al Matthews, number 29. For the Vikings, it was a distressing third straight loss at home, while the John Hadel-led Packers evened their record at 5-5. As Packer coach Dan Devine said later, John may not be an immediate messiah, but remember, Minnesota was 7-7 the first year Fran Tarkenton came back to them. And as Viking coach Bud Grant said, Hadel was the best quarterback in the league last year, and you don't win that with coupons.
Last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers were coming off a very tough loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, while their opponents, the Cleveland Browns, had just upset the New England Patriots. To make matters worse for the Steelers, the game would take place in Cleveland, where Pittsburgh hadn't won a game since 1964.
It's always bitter and often bizarre. It's called the Turnpike Rivalry, and the Browns and Steelers have been at it now for 25 years. Gone are the Otto Grahams and Bobby Lanes, however, and last Sunday in their place were such unlikely heroes as Cleveland rookie quarterback Brian Sipe and Pittsburgh's third-string passer Terry Hanratty, who was starting in hopes of energizing Pittsburgh's passing game. But Pittsburgh's ineffective passing continued as Hanratty was intercepted thrice and was victimized time and time again by hole-in-the-hand receivers. The Steelers' air attack was so dreadful that they completed only 3 passes in 19 tries. But some of the credit has to go to Cleveland's secondary, which was tough near their own goal line. Luckily for Pittsburgh, they do have a reborn running game, and Steve Davis and Franco Harris ran often and ran well. Franco romped for 156 yards on 23 carries, the 11th time he's gone over the century mark in his brief career. Pittsburgh's running set up 4 Roy Girella field goals, and their first touchdown came when Hanratty managed to hit on 2 big passes to Ron Shanklin. They were the only completions he made all day. For Cleveland, young Brian Sipe has replaced Mike Phipps and has brought back the short passing game reminiscent of the Bill Nelson days. But Sipe has the arm to go long, too, and this pass to Milton Morin gave Cleveland's offense its best shot of the day. Unfortunately, Sipe also has a penchant for giving up the ball. He was intercepted 3 times. Altogether, there were 13 turnovers in this wild ball game. Things got so bad that even Mean Joe Green, number 75, intercepted his first pass ever. It was the Browns secondary and Van Green in particular that finally got Cleveland a touchdown. The score, combined with 3 field goals, gave Cleveland the lead until early in the fourth quarter. But the 13th turnover in the game made the difference as Joe Green picked up Billy LaFear's fumble and lateral to J.T. Thomas for the final touchdown. Pittsburgh's victory was their first in 10 years in Cleveland and put them a game and a half ahead of the Bengals in the AFC Central Division.
Well, Pat, you can't convince me that the Houston Oilers have really won 4 games in a row, but you can go ahead and try it.
All right, I'll try, and I don't blame you, though, for the way you feel. Apparently, there are a lot of people in Houston who don't believe it either.
In Houston, Texas, the signs of the times are hard to believe. After 6 years of embarrassment, the symbol of the home team is suddenly an object of pride because of an old coach they call El Cid. Through strength of will, 62-year-old Sid Gilman has brought respectability back to the Astrodome and actually built a defense. Last week, the Bengals from Cincinnati found a tough row to hoe, all up and down the front line. Precise Ken Anderson, number 14, again had a high percentage passing day, but he found the Oilers' seams tight and they quickly closed. And when it counted most, the former powder blue sieve turned nasty and stomped Cincinnati into the fake grass every time they got close. The cagey old coach has been this way before, first in Los Angeles, then San Diego. And now his craft has turned the Oiler defense into a force to be reckoned with. Number 48, Bob Atkins, came up with this one of 2 Oiler interceptions off Anderson as the defense set up a couple of short Willie Rogers TD squirms. For offense, Sid Gilman has stayed with promising but shell-shocked Dante Pastorini, number 7. And finally, the offensive line has begun to provide some semblance of pass protection. Pastorini was on the mark, but the aggressive Bengal defense made life miserable for 00 Ken Burrow. In fact, although Pastorini completed 11 for 13, Cincinnati gave ground grudgingly and held Houston to under 100 yards passing. But when your defense holds the opposition without a TD, all you really need is that one sure shot. Pastorini and Burrow finally clicked for 6 as fans, players, and coach sensed the first Oiler home victory in over 2 years. In the end, Kenny Anderson was sacked 6 times on the way to a 20-3 Oiler victory. Houston had won 4 straight for the first time in 12 years. You can bet that the little old team maker is not finished yet. Next on the list is a team from just up the road named the Dallas Cowboys.
Put 2 football teams of roughly equivalent talent on a field, and the team which proves superior will usually be the team that suffers the fewest lapses in concentration. Witness the St. Louis Cardinals versus the Philadelphia Eagles last Sunday in Philadelphia.
For the first time in over a decade, the Philadelphia Eagles opened a football season with great expectations and even greater enthusiasm. But now, with their record disintegrated to 4 victories against 5 defeats, all that's left is great enthusiasm. And like the kingdom which was lost for the want of a nail, the Eagles' frustrations have been caused by the simplest thing, lapses in concentration. 5 times the Eagles aided the Cardinal ball control game with needless offsides penalties. And these so-called aggressive mistakes, like all others, are the result of momentary lapses in concentration. So drop passes and passes that shouldn't have been thrown and all the other momentary lapses left the Eagles looking like a very disconcerted team. Meanwhile, the consistent Cardinals cut up on Eagle pass pockets an incredible 9 times, dropping Roman Gabriel and leaving the Greenbirds one more thing to think about, losing. And losing is a very disconcerting thought. That the game was close is a credit to the Eagles' defense, which limited the Cardinals' mega play offense to one mini mega play. This Jim Hart to Earl Thomas connection good for 36 yards. Jim Hart built on the big play by hitting the consistently brilliant Terry Metcalf, who carries inside the 1. And Hart into the game's only touchdown drive himself, sneaking over to snap a 2-game Cardinal skid and maintain a full game advantage at the top of the NFC's Eastern Division. Final score, the consistent Cardinals 13, the less disciplined Eagles 3.
With the St. Louis Cardinals on the threshold of claiming the title in the NFC East, the Cowboys and the Redskins met in an important game that just might have decided the NFC's wild card team, Tom.
It was a wild game, too, wasn't it? Actually, there were 2 separate games played in RFK Stadium last Sunday as both Dallas and Washington put on their Jekyll and Hyde face masks.
On a splendid autumn afternoon, the Cowboys and Redskins played a remarkable game that's part of a rivalry that's remarkable for the outright dislike both teams have for each other. The series is marked by fierce hitting, and those who play in it are not known for faint hearts or weak knees. The Cowboys attacked Washington flat out and neck high, and anything not nailed down was wrenched off. The Redskins shadow boxed with Dallas until quarterback Billy Kilmer homed in on Roy Jefferson. With it 4th down, Kilmer was replaced by Joe Theismann, who fired out and burned through a crease in the doomsday defense. Theismann's first NFL touchdown gave Washington a 7-0 lead, and the burgundy began to flow past the bewildered Cowboys. A short burst by Charlie Evans built the pad to 14 points. While the Washington machine whispered along well-tuned, the Cowboys' attack wheezed. Redskins special teams supplied a 3rd touchdown when Ken Houston returned a punt 58 yards. Roy Jefferson capped an almost flawless half of football when he took a Kilmer lob and strolled in for 6. Trailing 28-0, the Cowboys slowly began to mesh in the second half. The comeback was spurred by the roughhouse runs of Calvin Hill and the receiving of tight end Billy Joe Dupree. Dupree's touchdown made it 28-7, and the Cowboys dug down deep to pull out some wild and woolly plays. A short smash by Robert Newhouse made the score 28-14, and the Redskins' momentum began to teeter. After a blocked punt, Roger Staubach cashed in for 6 with a second touchdown pass to fully extended Billy Joe Dupree. With less than 3 minutes to play, Dallas was in range of a tie at 28 when a fourth down Staubach pass slithered through the fingers of Drew Pearson. Dallas had come so far, so fast, but so in vain as they lost 28-21.
I'm almost afraid to bring this up, but I'm backing down. I'm having a slump on predictions.
What happened to you last week?
I don't know. I got shut out. We're both 21-23. Respectability, we need that.
Or do you consider yourself a front runner?
I used to think so, but now I'm not so sure. How about Philadelphia at Washington? There's one to start with.
Well, we saw the Redskins last week, the Eagles 2 weeks ago. I got to pick Washington. They're very impressive. They can beat you in so many ways.
I got to go with the Redskins, too. Their defense is still super tight.
That's a little bit surprising. How about Miami at the New York Jets?
I'm going to have to go with the champions. Looks like the Dolphins have it going, even though they had to outscore Buffalo to win, but I don't think the Jets have come that far.
Well, the Jets have come back a little bit. I know you're right. They've won 2 games in a row, but I still got to go with Miami, too.
Okay.
Dallas at Houston. This is a surprising one.
The Cowboys, the second half they played against the Redskins warrants picking the Dallas Cowboys. They may not be out of that wild card race yet.
Maybe not. This game's in Houston, you know.
Yeah, who do you like?
I like Dallas.
Okay.
Minnesota at Los Angeles.
I'm going to go with the Rams to bounce back, but I'm not even really sure if I got a chance in that one.
Minnesota was not very impressive losing to Green Bay last week, so I'll go against you here. I'll go with the Vikings. Okay. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you everything that happens around the NFL. I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.